Despite adding Lane Thomas earlier this month as a platoon bat, the Royals remain interested in Austin Hayes. What do we make of it? We'll tell you in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what to expect from this channel, well, right now until about mid-February, we'll only be bringing you 3 episodes a week, but for the majority of the year, about 10 and a half months out of the year, we'll be bringing you 5 episodes a week, 30 minutes in length. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Well, my original plan was to do this episode on Christmas Eve and then post it on Christmas Day, Christmas morning, to keep up with our usual schedule of Tuesday morning episodes, Thursday morning, and then Friday morning. But since this is a report that kind of feels like a now type of report that we talk about it before any sort of news would break, I felt that we might as well just post it today and then can always circle back to it on Thursday. But it was sent out there by Jon Heyman on Wednesday morning that the Royals are still interested in adding Austin Hayes, the free agent outfielder that spent time with the Reds last year and was always viewed as more of a platoon bat, somebody that can crush lefties. And truth be told, when the Royals signed Lane Thomas for the price they did, I thought it was because they were outpriced a little bit by Mike Yastrzemski and Austin Hayes. And that very well could still be the case, that Austin Hayes is wanting a Mike Yastrzemski type deal. But good that the Royals aren't scared away by any sort of deal right now. They still have interest. They clearly would want to add another right-handed bat that could help them against some tough lefties. My big question would be, is Austin Hayes looking to be an everyday bat? And do the Royals view him as an everyday bat? We know that it's been very public and very out there that the Royals were not done in looking to add to their offense after acquiring Isaac Collins from the Brewers. The original thought was, well, they're still shooting for the moon. They're still wanting Jarren Duran, and it was reported by multiple people that they want Jarren Duran. They're just not thrilled with the asking price. So if it's not Duran, we know that J.J. Picollo has mentioned that we'd still feel fine adding a couple of guys that can get on base at a high clip. It can really do damage in the middle to the top part of our order. Is Austin Hayes one of those guys? There's a chance he always regresses. I don't view him as an everyday bat. I feel that he would lengthen this lineup. I feel that he would be a better option than Lane Thomas. But where I would have some question is if you added Lane Thomas for the price you did and you still go out there and get Austin Hayes, well, why not just add Austin Hayes to begin with and not be concerned with the health or if Lane Thomas can bounce back at all? I mean, you go to the numbers last year that Hayes had. He had 380 at-bats at 266 for the Reds. He got on base at a 315 clip, had an OPS plus that was 5 points above league average. He did have 15 home runs. We can put an asterisk next to it because it is Great American Ballpark, and we all know that Jonathan India's power numbers did not translate from Cincinnati to Kansas City last year. And I don't see that being different for Austin Hayes. If the Royals do choose to go that route, I'd imagine the power numbers would come down a little bit. And he hasn't had north of 20 home runs. In fact, not even north of 16 home runs since 2021 in Baltimore. So you're not bringing him in to be that impact middle of the order bat. And that's why I'm totally fine with the Royals maintaining this interest if that interest is just in him being another platoon bat and being another right-handed outfielder off the bench. To have that type of security, I'm fine with it. But you can view him as the platoon bat and still go out there and get your everyday hitter. You can go out there and get the guy that can really raise the floor of your offense. I mean, I feel it's good business to bring in two guys that crush lefties and usually have over the course of their career, because the Royals didn't have that at all last year. They just did not hit lefties well. And it was mostly because the lineup they put out there against left-handed pitchers was quite honestly well below average. I mean, that's putting it nicely for guys that were in that lineup. There were guys that were in there hitting sub 200 against lefties. You just wanted to load up that starting nine with as many right-handed bats as you possibly could. So if you have Lane Thomas and you have Austin Hayes, and they become two guys that you plug into the outfield when you're facing lefties, that does do a lot for that lineup. That does raise the floor significantly, because you're still going to have Bobby Wood Jr., you're still going to have Garcia, you're still going to have Salvi. You're not sitting Vinny against left-handed bats because he's still one of the top hitters that you have. But Austin Hayes and Lane Thomas might replace Kyle Isbell and Jack Caglione against lefties. You know, if it's clear that those guys can't hit lefties, which we know more about that with Isbell than we do about Cags, because he's only had 1 year at the professional level. Isbell's got 5 to 6 years under his belt. We know he can't hit lefties. Therefore, I envision Lane Thomas being that guy that spells him against those tough lefties. If Austin Hayes is brought into this team and you get him on that team-friendly 1-year deal, you're going to see him in the lineup quite a bit. Is Isaac Collins somebody that they kind of view as more of a plug-and-play type? He's a utility guy. He can play left. He can play third. He can play second. He's great defensively in left, so I'd like to have that there. But if you don't land Duran and you don't land Brendan Donovan and you keep all of your pitchers, is Austin Hayes enough? Am I going to be completely satisfied come spring training if it's just Lane Thomas, Isaac Collins, and Austin Hayes being added to the outfield? I'd be a little bit under being satisfied. I'd feel just a little bit whelmed by it all, just because you were shooting so high for one of those big bats. And I'm not saying you had to meet the asking price of it, but it's very clear that with some of these guys you've brought in, they're not the 155 game a year guys. They're going to be good pieces for depth. They're going to be guys that you hold a lot of value in, but they are not going to be the bats that you can count on to drive the bus a little bit. There will be stretches where I feel that Austin Hayes can do that. I feel there will be a couple of games this year that Lane Thomas can go 3 for 4 against a left-handed pitcher, and that could be the difference in the game. Austin Hayes, kind of the same thing there, but you're still missing that Brendan Donovan type bat, that Jarren Duran type bat, or whoever they may be interested in. I like what they've done so far. And if this is a move that is just continuing to bolster the depth and increase the likelihood of this offense moving from bottom 5 in baseball to middle of the pack, I'm all for it. You know, if it's a 1-year deal, I couldn't care less about what that price may be, as long as it's not north of $20 million, which Austin Hayes isn't going to be making. If you get Austin Hayes around $8 to $10 million, I mean, this sounds very snooty of me, but it's not my money that I'm spending. I would like for him to produce well. I would like for him to hit lefties well. But on 1-year deals, you know, if it's $8 million, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. I talked with Dan Zimborski yesterday of Fangraphs, and you know, he had brought up the Jonathan India deal. He's like, yeah, you can bring up that $8 million is a lot for a guy that didn't play well last year. But for an owner, $8 million isn't that much. It's more so those multi-year deals that range anywhere from $25 to $30 million a year, where you really know you're emptying out the pocketbook, or you're emptying out your pockets and you're putting a blank check in front of somebody. That, to me, is when you really get concerned about how much money is going to a player. On 1-year deals, I mean, there's owners that are fine giving out 1-year deals worth $18 million, depending on what the age is of that player. With Austin Hayes, he's going to be affordable. The Royals can afford to give him a contract, whether it's a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. That remains to be seen. The fact they're interested, though, I just want to know what level of interest it is and what he could be. It is an A-plus type move if they simply view him as another bat like Lane Thomas. we're going to play him anywhere from 80 to 100 games this year. More often than not, it's against lefties. He's going to pinch hit a lot, and we're fine with that. You replace a Nick Lofton and John Rave with a Lane Thomas and Austin Hayes. That's doing good things for your bench. But if he's viewed as the pivot from not being able to land your middle of the order bat, that's when I say I just rather you put all of your resources into finding the impact bat than going after 3 or 4 platoon bats. You've got 2 bats, already in Collins and Lane Thomas. Austin Hayes, is a good pickup, and he's a good pickup when you're facing tough lefties. But even last year, he appeared in 103 games for the Reds. I'm not treating him as the 150 game type. In fact, he's never played more than 145 games, and that was back in 2022 with Baltimore. He was an all-star in 23. The upside's there, and I feel, as I've said multiple times, it raises the floor of this offense, but he cannot be the big get or the pivot from not being able to land a Duran or a Donovan. Would you be all right with the Royals bringing in Austin Hayes? And if so, were you all right with him being an everyday bat, or would you rather him be that platoon option? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, with Christmas being tomorrow, what is on our wish list for the Kansas City Royals? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Want to tell you about the one and only sponsor today in FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so very exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets all season long, because FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. For my pick, I will go back to the Chiefs and Broncos. That will be on Christmas night. Give me the over on rushing yards for Chris Oladokun. Give me the over on passing yards for Bo Nix. The Chiefs secondary is going to be a bit banged up, and I feel Bo Nix will have a very effective night through the air. But those will be my 2 picks, and I'm placing them over on FanDuel. Well, we wouldn't be, taking part in the tradition if we didn't give you some form of a Christmas wish list for the Kansas City Royals as we gear up for the new year. Hopefully that will be a sign of even more moves to talk about on this podcast. Usually during the holidays, our podcast schedule gets a little bit wonky. I've always tried to stick to the right format, and I feel the last couple of weeks we've had to change things around. I really, when things get quiet, would love to just rely on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. But last week, we had to do 4 episodes. The week before that, we did 7 episodes. When there's stuff to talk about and when there's moves to be made, we are going to do episodes on them. As long as I'm not out of town or away from my computer, which I would say majority of the time I'm always around my computer in some capacity. So I feel that if a move goes down on Christmas Day, it's unfortunate, but I might have to have my computer handy and find a time to have a quick 15-minute episode on it. But fingers crossed that it won't be until after the holidays that some move would happen with the Kansas City Royals. We discussed Austin Hayes being some form of an option. Jon Heyman had reported that the Royals remain interested, and this comes after them signing Lane Thomas, trading for Isaac Collins. I feel that for a lot of people's wish lists, you can add Austin Hayes to that, but like me, you just want him added as a platoon option. You do not want him to be the other bat they get, and then they kind of just sit on their hands the rest of the year and then the rest of this entire offseason. The top of my wish list has remained the same for the last couple of months. It is finding that bat that really moves the needle. And I love that they've raised the floor of the bench, because the bench was pretty poor last year. And it was something that we highlighted multiple times on Twitter. They just did not have a good enough bench to get through that season. And they didn't have a good enough bench to continue putting out the lineups that Matt Quatraro did. He is a very analytical manager. He loves to play the platoon splits. But when you don't have a good bench, it's not going to be as effective as you want it to be. Now, if you load up your bench with a bunch of lefty crushers and good defensive replacements, now you really got the wheels spinning on a good platoon lineup. And maybe that is the focus for J.J. Picollo in making sure that those lineups can work in 2026. But platoon bats are about 2 to 3 spots down my list now. I'm fine if Lane Thomas is their only platoon get for the outfield. I want some of those guys to play every single day, to get a ton of at-bats, to be 140 to 150 game guys. I don't want to have all 3 spots running a platoon. It might work for a little bit in theory, but you need to have a pretty solid outfield based on what you did the last couple of years. And that just puts needing the impact bat at the top of my list. I don't view Isaac Collins as an impact bat. I feel I feel that he can be a really good platoon type option / utility guy that appears in the majority of these games. Like, it's a unique role for him. He's not a righty versus lefty. He's going to play 155 games a year, but he's going to appear in a lot of games for the Royals, and he's going to start a lot of games. That's just the way it goes when you can play multiple positions. There's even a scenario where Jonathan India doesn't play well, and you do get your everyday bat that can play left field, and Isaac Collins becomes your second baseman. I'm not ruling out that possibility at all. But number one on that list, to ask Santa, to ask J.J. Picollo, is they need to have somebody that you put 5th in the order, you put leadoff, you hit 2nd, you hit 3rd. I'm talking the top 5 spots in the lineup. That's a Jaron Duran, that's a Brendan Donovan. I'm trying to think of other guys that are being shopped right now. Maybe Joe Adell could still be a possibility. But I would like to see them go out there and make that trade that makes the rest of the league open their eyes a little bit. I mean, yesterday, when I see the Pirates go out there and they sign Ryan O'Hearn, the old friend Ryan O'Hearn, and a few days before that, it was trading for Brandon Lau. I love that for baseball. I love that for smaller market teams. But the Brandon Lau 3-team trade was one that opened my eyes a little bit. I was surprised at the teams that were involved there, and I thought the Pirates got the best haul of all 3 of those teams. It might not be that way 2 to 3 years from now, but this helps the Pirates in 2026. For the Royals, I want to see a trade like that, whether it's a 3-team trade or a 1-for-1 straight up. I want to see a Jeff Passan tweet, a Robert Murray tweet that breaks the news. And it's the type of move where you go, get us to spring training now, because I love what this lineup looks like. I can't wait for that Friday night opening day in Atlanta against the Braves, because that lineup that's going to be run out there can be a very high upside lineup. And I don't believe they can reach where they want to get to without that impact bat. And I still want them to add to the bench. You know, going back to the Austin Hayes talk, if Austin Hayes replaces the Adam Frazier role, and I get it, he's not an infielder. He's not even a utility guy. He plays left and right field. That's pretty much it. But if he replaces Adam Frazier and Isaac Collins kind of fills that role and Lane Thomas replaces Nick Lofton, then you get that everyday bat. Now I feel good about it. Now I feel good about what this team might look like toward the end of the year. Things still have to go well. They have to stay healthy. Guys like Michael Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino are going to have to continue to build on what they did last year. You need Bobby Witt Jr. to be MVP caliber. You need Salvador Perez to, hopefully still be a 20 to 25 home run bat. You need the 2 youngsters to be able to be league average bats. And where you run platoons, you got to have good numbers when the lefty's facing the righty and the righty's facing the lefty. These are all things that are hypotheticals. And yeah, it is a part of my wish list and just praying that all these things work out. But the way you assemble the roster, you have in your mind the way you want it to go. You have this vision of, come September, here's what I'm expecting out of every single player. And if they can fulfill those roles, we're going to be a playoff team, come 2026. Things have to go right, as they do for every single team. But to me, I'm not sure it can be that way unless they get the middle of the order back. Number 2, I want to see them extend Vinny Pasquantino. You got Michael Garcia locked down. Vinny is the heart and soul of this team. He's the vocal leader coming off a 30-plus home run season, 100-plus RBI season. I want to see that guy get locked up long-term. He deserves it. He's one of the best guys to interview on this team, and I would argue in all of baseball, and he's just beloved by the fans. I believe you got to get that extension done, so he's number 2 on my list. Number 3 on my list, I would like to see them go out there and get another lefty specialist for the bullpen. It has nothing to do with a disdain for Daniel Lynch or Bailey Falter. I just feel they could spend a little bit of cash in bringing in a true lefty specialist that can not transform the bullpen, but really give you an advantage in numerous areas. If Matt Strahm, like I said, I talked to Dan Zimborski yesterday of Fangraphs. He loves the Matt Strahm trade, and you can listen to it. I'm going to post the podcast link to that later on today. I didn't have any video of it because it was an interview over the phone, but I talked to him about the Matt Strahm trade. He said, I love it. The upside's there for Strahm. He's been one of the better relievers in baseball, and he immediately becomes the best reliever for the Royals, even over Ursig and Estevez and guys like Steven Cruz. So if Matt Strahm takes on that role, well, I want a true lefty specialist to take on Hel Serpa's role, and that could be Chafin, that can be Ryan Baracki, maybe a Danny Kalum. We saw the White Sox sign Sean Newcomb. So number 3 on my wish list, I want to see them, find a way to get one more guy for that bullpen that can, maybe give you that slight advantage when you need one out in the 6th inning or one out in the 7th inning. You don't have to burn Matt Strahm for that spot. And the last wish list item I have, give out 15 minor league deals, because I feel like the Royals do this every single year, and they hit on at least one of them. They had actually just signed somebody as I was recording this podcast. And in fact, before I went into this second segment here, they had just signed somebody to a minor league deal. It's a left-handed reliever, funny enough. And it was Helcris Olivares, who spent the 2025 season in the Giant system, has a very powerful fastball. Royals Review put this out there, 25-year-old lefty, 3.65 ERA and 34 relief appearances, but with 43 walks and 37 innings, never pitched in a big league game. So you have somebody, big fastball, low command, high strikeout rate. You might take that and take a chance on him in spring training. So he does get that invite there. Give out 10 to 15 more of them, and I'll be satisfied with it. So those are my wish list items. Definitely let me know in the YouTube comments below who is on your wish list or what move is on your wish list. Or you can just reach out to me directly on Twitter and tell me there. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, I'm going to give a nod to one of our loyal listeners and talk about maybe Kris Bubic being that guy you could move to the bullpen if he's not traded. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Real quick, we want to tell you about the Everydayer Club, and thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network. And if you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. Very simple to find it. Just go in our show notes below. You just scroll down on YouTube or scroll down on the podcast page, and you will be able to see the URL that will take you right to it. They got a great little deal for access. No ads on these episodes. You get the Discord server access, the text messaging. Everyday Locked On Club has really been promoted well by everybody out there at Locked On. It's a really cool and new inventive way of just getting more access. If you can't get enough Royals baseball, I can't recommend it enough. So if you're interested in it, definitely scroll down, click on the URL, and see if that offer interests you. But Locked On's very excited about it, and I am too. Christmas is right around the corner. The holidays is a great time to get somebody a gift. Maybe if you like this podcast that much, the Everydayer Club is just for you. Well, I wanted to give a nod to one of our listeners, a loyal listener in Spoons, that has brought up the idea of Kris Bubic moving back to the bullpen. There's no need to go and get a left-handed reliever. And this was before the Matt Strahm deal, so maybe he doesn't feel this way anymore. But I do believe it's worth the conversation. It's worth the debate of, if I'm saying, go out there and get that lefty specialist. Go out there and spend $4 million on Andrew Chafin, or go spend $3 million on Ryan Baracki, or go spend $7 million on Danny Kalum. You do all those things, I'll feel better about the bullpen. But when you have in-house options, at times they are your best options. And going back to 2024, Kris Bubic wasn't just the Royals' best left-handed reliever. He was the second best reliever on the team behind Lucas Erceg. And he showed a ton of value there. And with the injury concern, and with him being a free agent at season's end, it might be something the Royals consider. Now, I pushed back on it, not so much of the ideology behind it. It was that if I'm Kris Bubic, I'm not doing that. And I do believe he's a team player. And at the end of the day, if the Royals wanted to move him, he doesn't strike me as somebody that would push back on it a ton. Just because I feel if injuries were a concern, you can still get a ton of value out of the bullpen. If he became a back-end reliever for this team and threw 50 to 60 innings, had a high strikeout rate, he's going to have a good market out there in free agency. Because even though I'd like to say, for Kris Bubic's sake, and I hate to speak for the guy, but I'd say I was an all-star last year as a starter. I was near being a Cy Young finalist if I stayed healthy. I still want to be a starter because I'm not going to make starter money if I'm pitching one inning every 2 to 3 days. I mean, that just doesn't feel like good business for me. That doesn't feel like the logical way of going about it in a contract year. The counterpoint to that would be, well, what if you get hurt? What if you can't make it through April or May? Now what type of deal you're getting? And I understand that you can get hurt in the rotation. You can get hurt in the bullpen. And if the Royals win the 2026 with Matt Strahm and Kris Bubic as their two lefties, I love the look of that bullpen. I really do. If they hang on to all the starters they have and they don't trade anybody, which I still have my doubts on that, you've got a solid rotation. And I keep referencing the Dan Szymborski interview I had yesterday, which will be available later on this afternoon. He had said that the Royals have the deepest pitching staff in the AL Central, more so than Cleveland, more so than Detroit. If you take pride in that and you continue to bolster the bullpen, there's no better left-handed option that you could add than Kris Bubic to that bullpen. Now, to continue with these counterpoints upon counterpoints and just keep going in circles here, what if Kris Bubic stays healthy and he's your number 4, number 5 starter? That's all-star level. He has a chance of being the second best lefty in the rotation behind Cole Ragans. Maybe even if Noah Cameron takes another step forward, you're talking about a guy who can be top 10 in ERA and he's your third best left-handed starter and your third best starter, period. No, you love the upside of that. And maybe you just have to wait and see how he feels in spring training. The alarming thing to me when Bubic was sidelined for the rest of the year in 2025 was he said that he felt it in spring training. Like he felt some of the discomfort, but he pitched through it, pitched incredibly well. I mean, half the year and was an all-star, but he had noticed something in spring training. And at the very end, that's when it flared up and the rotator cuff strain put him on the bench for the rest of the year. If you feel anything in spring training, and I know it's tough to do, I can't imagine being somebody that wants to make a ton of money and then you just can't, keep fighting these injuries. You can't keep beating this injury bug that you have. But if you feel something, it's all right to shut it down a little bit, and then maybe you completely shift your focus to being that 1-inning guy, that 2-inning guy. Then you'll still make a good amount of money in free agency, and it certainly helps the Royals bullpen. And they're going to have somebody to replace you like Ryan Bergert or Steven Kolek. There are guys on this team that can start, and that's the difference, unlike last year, where last year Alec Marsh is not ready to go in spring training. He's not going to be ready to go in 2026 either, but you had no depth there. Daniel Lynch had made the shift to the bullpen, so he was no longer going to be starting games for you unless he was an opener. But Bubic had to start. They were counting on Kris Bubic being one of their better starters. Now that you have 3, 4, 5 options to replace Bubic, it's not as difficult to make that switch. I feel it comes down to the upside he has as a starter, and also in a contract year, he's going to want to be starting games for Kansas City. And I'm not sure you should operate as a GM with the constant fear of injuries. You do need to take into account somebody being injury prone because you want to get value out of this guy. You want your team to be the best version of itself. And I know the Royals think the best version of our team is Kris Bubic starting games for us. But if he's not healthy, then that point is moot. Then he needs to become a reliever because we know he can pitch effectively in that role as well. Do you believe the Royals should move Kris Bubic back to the bullpen? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. Well, that's going to do it for a Christmas Eve edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. We are going to be off on Christmas, but we'll be back on Friday for a Mailbag Friday. So get your questions in below. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.